I want to go over in this video the whole Facebook Cambridge data breach thing. And it might be a little different than what you expect. Let's roll that intro. All right, first off, I want to cover what is a data breach. So that means that somebody got access to data that's in a system, in some sort of software or some sort of place. They got access to that who were not supposed to access it. Okay? So is it actually even a data breach? Well, there's aspects of it that are, and there's aspects of it that aren't. And if you look at, like, I've seen some of the articles and things in the tech world that they're talking about this, because I don't really pay attention to the news very much. I think it's just a bunch of garbage for the most part. But in the tech world, I was looking at, like, what is actually going on here? What happened, right? So there was a mistake, yes, that Facebook made, or I think was a mistake. They may have just done it on purpose. But what they had was the ability, when you create an app, that you can authorize people to access your data, which is totally fine because the person had the choice to decide if they wanted to access your data for using the app, right? But the other thing was they could access their friends, like a bunch of data for their friends. And that part, you know, they're saying it's a data breach and whatever. Okay, so there's a valid problem that occurred here, but there's also something that I want to make sure that we're all thinking with. It's kind of a little different than what you may be thinking with. So how many accounts were actually breached? There was a number that was like 30 million, then there was like 50 million, then now there's like, it was like 87 million. And even in the context of things, like, so it was 87 million people, and you look at Facebook having billion, you know, 1.7 or whatever it is, 1.9 billion users using their platform. Even this whole thing is a big scandal was, you know, 50 million people. That is a problem, but I want to actually talk about, there's a few parts of the problem that I don't think everybody's fully looking at on this. So I wanted to compare this to other data breaches. Just in 2017, the Identity Theft Resource Center, right, which is a group, found that there were 1,293 breaches that they knew about that occurred. Right? And there's all sorts of different sizes and all sorts of different things on what that actually means, a data breach, right? Because one thing is a system unethically or ethically allowing people to access the data that they actually did do. The other is people just stealing data right out of a system. So sometimes I think we can mash these words together and call something a data breach that maybe it is. Maybe it's just the fact that the company had a policy that people didn't like. I don't know. So I'm going to give you a couple examples here. In January 2018, the electronic toy maker VTech Technologies came to a settlement with one of the government agencies after like investigating for years because they had exposed the personal data for 6.4 million children. So you look at something like that and you can go, wow, they exposed the personal data of 6.4 million children. What that is and what that means and how much data it was, you'd have to dive more into that. But just to give you an example of a breach, they now are paying a settlement. But you probably didn't hear about that one. You probably didn't hear much about that one. We're going to get to why. So stay to the end of the video because you're going to hear about why I think that you're hearing a lot more about this Facebook data breach than most of these other ones. Then you get into May 2018, and you get one of the largest data breaches ever recorded, which is Under Armour had their app MyFitnessPal expose the usernames and passwords and email addresses for 150 million users, right? But you probably didn't hear much about that. Like, unless this is something you really follow heavily, you probably didn't hear much about that. And again, I'm going to get into why I think that is just a few minutes in this video. So what happened? What was the Cambridge Analytica thing? So what they did is they actually created an app that was a Facebook app that was a psychological profile. And they had people who could basically request to use the app, which gave them access to the information of that person's profile. At the time, earlier on, Facebook had the ability for you to see the data of the friends and some of the other people as well. So it extended a little too far, as far as my own personal opinion, for what should be shared. Because you can authorize if you want to give your data, but then how that connects to other people, that can also create or pose problems. The thing that I'm surprised about is why these other scandals didn't acquire almost any attention, in large part. I mean, again, some of you may have heard some of these things, but you probably didn't hear it not nearly as much as what we're experiencing on this one. And yes, in some cases it was far bigger data, but also to get the data of 6.4 million children, that's not a nothing, right? So you just think with this. It's just, you start to look at like what's going on here, what's behind all of this. Whatever your political beliefs are, I don't care. Like, I don't really dive into politics that much. I really don't care about it, other than, we should actually be talking about issues and things like that. But I'm not like, yeah, one person's always right and one person's always wrong, and like I think it's just a waste of time to go into that. But I will say that I do observe when there are political agendas and when there are people trying to make something a bigger issue because of politics, and that I don't think is good reporting. I don't think that's good to do that, because I think it skews, like, I can look at that and go, wow, there's a lot of politics involved in why Facebook's being slammed on this specific thing. And again, it's not okay that anything happens like that, but there's also an aspect of responsibility that I believe users have. Like, why do you think that Facebook lets you use Facebook for free? Why do you think you use Facebook for free? So you use it for free to post things on the internet which you don't want to get found on the internet. So I'm not trying to slam the users. I'm not trying to say Facebook's not at fault, but I am saying I think specifically that users need to look at their responsibility as well in how they share data in all of this. If somebody accesses your data and you didn't give them permission to, that totally, I get that 100%. But at the same time, realize that Facebook's whole business is your data. That's the way they make money. What do you think they make money doing? Right? And I have 2 other videos that I'm going to do on Facebook and data and some of the questioning that Congress did, and some really funny things I think that these congressmen asked that really shows a major disconnect, right? A major disconnect there. So don't forget to subscribe, because I'm going to cover that in some later videos. And also, don't forget to comment below and let me know what you think. But here's the final point. This is like my conclusion point of this video. I think more and more today, people will agree to something. Like, for example, you sign up on Facebook and you agree to the terms and conditions. That's a lot of things you're agreeing to, but you never read it. So that's not on Facebook, though. Like, if Facebook didn't provide a terms and conditions, then yes, I would get that, right? And then they pretend like you agree to it. If you didn't agree to it, you didn't agree to it. But if you did, we also have to take a little responsibility on our end as users and go, okay, you know what? I agreed to certain things. I agreed that Facebook could sell my data to advertisers. Not even selling the data, but they sell the access to specific people. And I have another video on all the kinds of targeting you can do on Facebook, and it is incredible what you can target on Facebook. But realize this is also data in large part that we have provided. Yes, they go and they do get other data, but in large part we provided this data to Facebook. We went and uploaded where we went, and we wanted to share with our friends where we traveled to and all of this. You're giving that data to Facebook. That is available to them to then advertise to you on. So you're sitting there going, hey, I'm talking about, I posted on my page, interested in finding a good camp, and you start to see ads for camps. Don't be surprised, because you have now expressed interest in camps. That is our responsibility as a user, and if you don't like it, right, then maybe try not using a free platform. Build your own Facebook. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying they're not at fault, but I am also saying we need to also look at, from a user perspective, our responsibility on these things, because it's not only one issue. There's several different things involved here, right? So just keep that in mind. I think there's more to this whole thing, and I have a couple other videos that I'm putting together that will be coming in the next couple days that you'll see on this subject. But I think it's just very fascinating what we're experiencing with today, what things that the news and media make as a big problem, and what things you never hear about, right? Because there's plenty of things you never hear about that I really feel you should, and there's plenty of things that we do hear about that I'm like, okay, that's not the full picture, though. You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. This was just one on that whole cycle, so you got to see a comparison of what people were actually doing, right? In this data breach, they ended up having other access beyond what people feel they should to these things. However, Facebook built it, and Facebook has plenty of layers of people who have to approve how things work. So, I mean, somebody thought it was a good idea, and they had it done. I'm not saying that there's not a fault there, but I did want to bring up the point, maybe we got to look at what our responsibility is in these things too. All right, guys. I know nobody likes to hear from somebody who says you have responsibility in things unless you're a responsible person, right? But I wanted to just kind of give you my viewpoint, give you another perspective and something to look at on this. All right, see you guys tomorrow. Talk to you tomorrow.